So, good morning, or hello, I should say. It's morning for me. Uh, this is going to be a video. The first one of hopefully several, working on getting you guys prepared for the exam. Many of you did not have not had my class since the beginning of the year, since January. So there's maybe a little bit of lag there, but hopefully you didn't forget everything. Little overview. Excuse me. We will be doing the exam on May 12th. It will be an in-person exam. So those of you who are e-learners, you need to make the arrangements to get in here because it will be a paper in-person exam on May 12th. It will be an early exam, so it'll be 8:45. We start the day with the exam, and it'll be probably, I would slot about 4 hours total for the exam. It's 3 hours and 15 minutes, and then with handing this out and that out, I would say 4 hours total for the exam. You'll need number 2 pencils, which I'm sure they'll have some, but bring if you're comfortable with it with your own, and a pen for the free response. I would absolutely bring pens that you're comfortable with, that you're used to using. That being said, also I want you to make sure that you are um, utilizing this time to handwrite. So we're going to do some practice stuff, and you're going to submit those to me to get a little feedback. But in doing this, you had feedback before with the typed stuff. You need to be handwriting what we're doing. So my formatting for this, I think, is going to be through the Google Classroom, so you can take pictures that are legible for me and practice using those hand muscles. Because if you're typing, that's great, but then all of a sudden you have to write 3 essays in 2 hours. That fatigue sets in, and if you haven't used your hands to write those essays for that long, that fatigue starts to dictate how well you write penmanship wise, but it also starts to dictate how much energy you want to put into this. My hand hurts. I need to finish this. So we want to negate those kind of factors that would play on our ability to complete this effectively. Okay, to try to move forward, an overview of the exam. Remember, the exam is 2 parts. So this is AP Language and Composition. It is rhetorically based, and it's 2 parts. It has the multiple choice, which is going to be an hour. We're going to go over that in just a second. I have this on the screen. We're going to look at that, and then we're going to talk about the free response. The free response questions will be 2 hours and 15 minutes. You have 15 minutes of reading time, 2 hours of writing time. Easily broken down, that's 40 minutes per essay to write with the 15 minutes of reading time. So if we can bring our attention to the multiple choice section. So the multiple choice section here, and this is all I did with is College Board, and this is easily accessible for you guys. So this is not something like the wizard's wand or anything like that. This is just available for all of you. But it's 5 sets of questions. We're going to have 23 to 25 reading questions that ask students to read and analyze nonfiction text. Then you're going to have 20 to 22 writing questions that ask students to read like a writer and consider revisions to stimulus texts. So what does that mean? You're going to have about half of this exam, a little more than half of this exam, is going to be about you understanding what's going on in an analysis type of way. And then the other part is going to be you looking at how someone is writing and maybe thinking about changes, or if they're doing this correctly, maybe a grammatical thing or a stylistic thing that you're going to be dealing with. And again, we will be taking that, we'll be looking at those multiple choice questions, which you've done already, and we'll be breaking them down here in the next few weeks. With the free response section of the exam is 3 questions, 2 hours and 15 minutes, which includes a 15-minute reading period. This is 55% of your exam score. So I'm not a math major, but 45 here, 55, there's 100%. Your synthesis question, rhetorical analysis, and the argument. What I'm going to go over now is the free response question section and the rubric. So bear with me, and I think I have this. Yes. All right. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to expand this up, and there we went. There I went. So anyway, hopefully you You can hear me here. You can't see me, but that's probably better for the best. This is the free response question. Now, this is from 2019. The format may be a smidge different, and the instructions are going to be a little different. So when we look at the AP Classroom now, and they give you the instructions, and it kind of breaks down the rubric, which we're going to look at next, the format may be a little different, but I'm going to, if I was a betting man, I'd say it's going to be pretty similar to this. So what you're going to do is you're going to get the question 1 is the synthesis question. That's going to be the question that you have the documents, and also remembering that your argument should be the focus of the essay here, not the document. So this is not, you're not summarizing these documents, you're writing an essay with your position. So for example, this particular essay is the one that I read as a reader a couple of years ago, 2019, is talking about wind power. These sources develop use the sources to develop your argument, and explain the reasoning for it. You're not summarizing the sources. It'll have the instructions here, but it's also going to have a little section that talks about make sure you have a thesis, make sure you're using support, make sure you're doing these things. And we'll talk specifically about question 1 in the next video that I'm doing. After this, you have all these documents you're utilizing. We'll talk about those in the next video. You're going to go through those. You're going to have 15 minutes to read, get through all of that, and then you're going to write your essay. Then you get to question 2. Question 2 is that one where it's very similar to a Follow the Columnist, where you're going to have a prompt here. You're going to have a section of writing from somebody, and then you're going to, like here, for example, in a well-written essay, analyze the rhetorical choices Gandhi makes to present his case to Lord Irwin. So this is where you're writing about how they're writing. You're looking at the section or the excerpt from a holistic space to where you're thinking, okay, what tools are they utilizing? Go figure. So this is video 1. Video 2 is going to be about the question 1. Video 3 is going to be about question 2. And then video 4 is going to be question 3. I'm just kind of creative that way. And then we'll work on multiple choice. But I want to get these under our belts first. You guys know what to do here, but you're going to read it and then break it down how they've done their writing. And question 3, much less reading, but this one is select a concept, place, role, etc. in which you believe the term overrated should be applied. Then write a well-developed essay in which you explain your judgment. This is what you're supposed to be doing in this particular essay. This is what they call the argument essay. So the first one is the synthesis question. The second one is the analysis question. The third one is the argument, where you're developing your argument. The trick here, and I find where students oftentimes get stuck, is finding the appropriate evidence from your reading experience or observations to support your argument. So support that you use here comes from maybe Follow the Columnist that you've read, books that you've read, places you've been, people you know, conversations you've had, things that you've seen, experienced in your life. Those are all valid means of developing your argument. We talked about the rhetorical triangle, the rhetorical situation, where you have the rhetor, the audience, and the exigence. That credibility you're going to develop in the writing of this argument comes from your experience. The credibility in question 1 comes from your argument, but you bring in other sources to add to your credibility. And then the credibility in question 2 comes from your usage of the document that you're bringing in, that you're proving your points that you're making. So that provides credibility for you there. All right, what I'm going to do now, so that's an overview of the 3 questions, if you remember those. Now I'm going to move to the rubric. So I think I'm moving to the, here we go. Here is the rubric. Now this is the rubric for the question 1 synthesis essay. I'm going to go over, well, actually this is the rubric for all of them, but we're going to look at the synthesis essay because they're all very similar. In that row A deals with your thesis. They've changed the rubric, as I mentioned before. to where you have a potential of 6 points total. So here are the 6 points that you can get, but one of the points is for a thesis. Now, again, not a math major. This is 55% of your grade as the free response questions. Each of these, the synthesis, the analysis, and the argument, are equally distributed with regards to your grade on this. So out of the 55%, a third of that is going to be the synthesis, a third of that is going to be the analysis, and a third of that is going to be your argument. So if we take a third and you have 6 points to get out of this, you're looking for 6. That's what you want. I would say we want 5s or 6s. So how do we get these? Well, we'll look at how we write and what we do, but as far as pragmatic, practical understanding, 1 point is your thesis. So you must have, what's it say? 0 points for all of these things. 1 point, responds to the prompt with a thesis that presents a defensible position. That's it. Responses that earn this point responds to the prompt rather than restate or rephrase the prompt, and, underlined, the thesis clearly takes a position rather than just stating that there are pros and cons. So you're taking a position on something. You're saying, hey, here's what I think, without saying I think. That position is going to drive the essay. So in this, if you do that, you get a point. Now, having done the reading last year, this to me, and it doesn't have to happen in the beginning of the essay, it can be at the end of the essay, but why make it difficult? Put your thesis right in your introduction. Even if your introduction is only your thesis, make it to where they have to give you this point. And then you start writing your essay. Row B is evidence and commentary. Now on each of the essays, this is the case. You have thesis, and then you have evidence and commentary. So what's evidence and commentary looking for? Let's look at 4. Evidence provides specific evidence from at least 3 of the provided sources to support all claims in a line of reasoning. And we're going to talk about this line of reasoning a lot. And commentary consistently explains how the evidence supports a line of reasoning. So there's an and here. It's not an or. It has to have both of these things. So you need to have 3, minimum of 3. I'm going to suggest 4 or 5. One of these at least being like an antithesis or a refutation of what you're suggesting, acknowledging that people have other views than you, and then you're going to have support that backs this up. The line of reasoning is them wanting you to write a connective essay. You're going to make a thesis. Your thesis should not provide the reader with 3 points you're going to discuss, and all 3 of those points be autonomous individual points that can be interchanged in the essay. One point A should lead to point B, and if you have a point C, A and B should lead to C. As mentioned in class, and possibly forgotten, but probably not because you guys are really smart. As mentioned in class, think about this question 1 as bringing the sources you're utilizing to a table discussion, to where you're initiating the discussion and those sources are adding to your argument. It should not be a paragraph that covers the points that are in source A, and then another paragraph that covers the points in source D, and another paragraph that covers the points in source F. It should be a paragraph that takes on part of your argument, and you bring in source A and source C and source G that add to your argument. And then paragraph 2, it's another part of your argument that connects to the previous part of the argument, because you can't have one without the other, and you're bringing in other sources that support that, and then you close. It could be that way, but that line of reasoning is imperative. You need to get 3 or 4 points here. I'll talk to you why in just a minute. These 3 or 4 points are necessary because if you go down to 2 points, provides evidence from or references at least 3 of the provided sources, hey, you can have 3, but you still get 2 points. explains how some of the evidence relates to the student's argument, but no line of reasoning is established or the line of reasoning is faulty. It doesn't make sense, or you're autonomous in your ideas and they're not connective. There's no A leads to B, leads to C, leads to D. If you do this, it's very possible that you will not be able to get that last point. So if you have a thesis and you get 2 points here, 3 is probably all you're going to get. So from a pragmatic standpoint, you need to be touching on getting 3 or 4 of these points. And this goes for each of these essays. So then, and you guys can read, I'm not going to read over this whole thing for you, but then we go to row C, 1 point demonstrates sophistication of thought and or complex understanding of the rhetorical situation. Now, without the line of reasoning, you don't understand the complexity of the rhetorical situation. We will talk specifically in the next video about how this would happen with this particular essay, because this is what we're going to work on, the wind turbine one. But we will be talking and dealing with how we would develop a line of reasoning and how that might look here, and how you can absolutely connect or collect the first point, 3 or 4 in the second row B, and in row C absolutely get that last point. So you're looking at a minimum of 5, potentially 6, and that's what we should be shooting for in each of these. If we get dinged, maybe on that last one, but it won't be on the row A or B. The last one, row C, to me adds a little bit of subjective notion to it. But if we can get 3 or 4 in that second one, you're going to be fine with these scores. And again, I'm not going to go over all the rubric. Each of you has this in your Google Classroom. I would suggest you read over this whole thing. I am open for questions. If you have questions for me, shoot me an email. I'm happy to address these. But like I say, the next video is going to be taking on the, let's see if I can. There we go. The next video is going to be taking on the synthesis question and breaking that down with the rubric. And then I'm going to ask you guys to do some writing and then send them to me, and we'll see how successful you are with that. All right, so this is probably longer than I want it to be already. Thank you very much, and I hope this has helped you, and look forward to the next video.